Hey everyone, and welcome as we continue our study through the New Testament, looking at the New Testament church. And today we're going to be in Revelation 5, 1 through 14, looking at the Lamb opening or opens the scroll as we start into this. So we'll read through the notes, or read through it, look at some of the notes, and then continue on. So then I saw a scroll in the right hand of the one who was sitting on the throne. There was writing on the inside and outside of the scroll, and it was sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a strong angel who shouted with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to break the seals on the scroll and open it?" But no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll and read it. Then I began to weep bitterly because no one was found worthy to open the scroll and read it. But one of the 24 elders said to me, "Stop weeping. Look, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the heir to David's throne, has won the victory. He is worthy to open the scroll and its 7 seals." And then I saw a lamb that looked as if it had been slaughtered, but it was now standing between the throne and the 4 living beings and among the 24 elders. He had 7 horns and 7 eyes, which represent the sevenfold Spirit of God that is sent out into every part of the earth. He stepped forward and took the scroll from the right hand of the one sitting on the throne. And when he took the scroll, the 4 living beings and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb. Each one had a harp, and they held gold bowls filled with incense, which are the prayers of God's people. And they sang a new song with these words: "You are worthy to take the scroll and break its seals and open it, for you were slaughtered, and your blood was ransomed, has ransomed people for God from every tribe and language and people and nation. And you have caused them to become a kingdom of priests for our God, and they will reign on the earth." Then I looked again, and I heard the voices of thousands and millions of angels around the throne, and of the living beings and the elders, and they sang a mighty chorus: "Worthy is the Lamb who was slaughtered to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing." And then I heard every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and in the sea. They sang, "Blessing and honor and glory and power belong to the one sitting on the throne and to the Lamb forever and ever." And the 4 living beings said, "Amen." And the 24 elders fell down and worshiped the Lamb. And so again, we get this just well, I won't say wild, but it's a very imaginative scene in heaven here. And so John introduces the Lamb, and the Lamb, if you haven't figure that out, is Jesus. All right, he's the central figure of Revelation and God's chosen agent for accomplishing his purposes. So the scroll that we have here, or book, right? The word here, a lot of times scroll is used. It could be book, but it's like a dramatic script here, right? It details God's plan for the world, and it's in His right hand, and that represents God's gracious authority and power. And there's writing on the inside and on the outside, which means it's God's plans for history, and it's full and complete. And so, with all the writing on the inside and all the writing on the outside, it's full and complete, and it's sealed with 7 seals. And what this means is God has put His purpose for history in basically in a safe that can't be opened. It's sealed 7 times, so it's sealed perfectly. Again, the number 7 basically usually is representative of something being complete, perfect, or whole. And so his purpose here, or his purposes, will be completed only when the seals are broken. And so at first, there's no one who can, in the entire universe, who seemed to have the divine power or the worthiness to answer the angel's call. And so John wept because of this, because, even though the revelation had been promised to him, he thought he was going to be denied the knowledge of the divine script. He thought, no one was worthy to fulfill God's plan. And so John's weeping highlighted the significance of this anticipated revelation of what he thought he was going to see. And so we see that, with these designations that's given to Jesus, whenever the elder speaks to John and says, "Look, there's the Lion of Judah," which comes from Genesis 49, and then there's the heir to the David's throne. The literal translation there is the root of David, and that comes from Isaiah 11:12. They're metaphors for the Messiah in the Old Testament, right? We see them used. And so because Jesus won the victory at the cross, we know that he's the only one worthy to open the scroll and reveal God's purposes. And so all of God's plans center around Jesus and what he's done. And that's the scene that we see here. His relationship to the scrolls indicates his control of history. And so we know that the Jews expected the Messiah to appear as a conquering lion, but instead Jesus showed up as a lamb. You know, if you've been, the time of the recording of this video is just right after Christmas, and so if you studied that with anyone in your church or congregation, you know, you study the fact that, you know, they expected a conquering king to come, not some little baby born to excuse me, in a manger in a basically a barn to some unknown people. That wasn't the, you know, but that's how he chose to come into this world. And so the lamb that had been slaughtered was now standing, and that referred to Jesus' death and resurrection. So we know that Jesus was killed, crucified, slaughtered on the cross, but he also rose from the dead. And so the lamb's 7 horns represent his complete power. So the you know, obviously the lamb had the 7 horns, and then also he had the 7 eyes, and that represents his complete knowledge. So we know that Jesus is represented by, with the 7 horns, by having complete power, the 7 eyes by having being able to see and have complete knowledge. You know, and he's also fully related to the way this works out, or the way this is described, to the 7-fold Spirit, or to the perfect Spirit of God. And so we see how all that's related there. And so when they see them, they all fall down. Everyone fell down before the Lamb. You know, because the crucified and risen Christ has the divine authority to initiate the events of his age, and he is fully worthy of worship. And so the whole created order joins in a new song in praise of the Lamb. We see this. Everyone starts to worship him, and the Lamb is worthy because through his sacrifice, he won the right to break the seals of the scroll and enact God's purpose in history. And so that's what this is playing out. This is what this is showing, that this revelation is. It's showing who Christ is, his power, his authority, and how he has the authority to fulfill the plan of God. And so the song that they sing summarizes the good news about Jesus, of who he is, and how wonderful he is. And the description of God's people as a kingdom of priests, that's something we need, but we've studied that, right? Paul wrote about that, how we are a royal priesthood. It basically says that, you know, we're basically a kingdom of priests who are going to enjoy the ultimate victory and reign with Christ. And it reflects the images of Jesus as both king and high priest. You can look at Romans 1 and Hebrews 6 that writes about that as well. And so we then see a huge angelic chorus number, and it says thousands and millions. I don't know if that's just trying to say, hey, there was a lot, or if it's thousands of millions. But either way, there's the angelic chorus was huge. It was absolutely huge, and it was a worthy response. And so all of heaven responds to creation's confession of Christ's sacrifice. So we see that. We see all that worship. And then we see a second response that comes from every key creature, even those, excuse me, under the earth and in the sea. And like we talked about earlier, the under the earth would be the place of the dead. And in the sea, that's usually associated with evil. In this time, the way that was right. And so it was possibly implying even a mandatory response from those in a rebellion from God. So even those who, you know, I think it's an imagery of even those who are evil are going to worship God, are going to worship Christ. You know, it's a mandatory. They're going to, once the, you know, I think that's the idea, the vision that we're seeing here is, in the end, everyone will worship Jesus, no matter what. You know, whether you were faithful or not, you're going to worship him as God, as who he is. And so we see this dramatic introduction of Jesus, of the Lamb, right? And it closes with the living beings, and in the end, and their amens affirm the truth of what John had seen, and as the 24 elders prostrate themselves or fall down and worship of Christ. And so again, like I said, as we read through this, you've kind of got to use an imagination. You've got to picture this scene in heaven of what's going on, but understand that there's a reason for all this imagery. There's a reason for us to see all this and see what there's meaning behind every seven horns, every the seven seals, all that stuff. And so we'll continue this. I hope you'll learn it tomorrow. We're going to look at the Lamb breaking the first six seals, what happens there, what that means, and look at that and go through it and see. But again, I hope y'all are enjoying this. I hope you're learning from it. I encourage you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. That way you can continue to follow along with us. You get the notifications whenever we publish a video. But as always, more than anything, I appreciate everyone takes time to watch, and I hope y'all have a wonderful day.